Hi, welcome to another episode of Youth Diary. Adolescence is a period where the youth is confused about each and everything, and during that time they need an expert advice. And to help us we have Dr. Jaisoorya with us. He is a psychiatrist at Cochin Medical College. Hello doctor, welcome to our show. Doctor, we all know our youth, they go through a lot of mental and physical stress. You must be knowing in your day-to-day life or in your practice, they do come with a lot of problems. Can you just explain what are the common problems they do come with?
A lot of people during their adolescence have a lot of confusion about what they should do, what they should not do, and they go through a phase of experimentation trying to find out their own avenues. And there's also a period during which they rebel against authority, rebel against their parents, in trying to find out what their own paths are. Okay. It is generally a period of growth, experimentation and understanding themselves. And though people talk about adolescence as a negative phase, I would certainly see it as a very positive phase where people evolve from childhood to their own self in adulthood.
Okay. So what are the common problems
they obviously come with problems with parents, problems with teachers, problems with themselves. So when you talk about that, and problems with their choices. Generally this is related to their own confusions. Okay, and they get into fights, people complain about them, they say that they're not doing their work that they should be doing, they do go after other things that they have to, and there is a lot of conflicts in their immediate environment, and that's the common reason why people are brought to practice, saying that this fellow is not listening to me.
I think we also should consider them as an individual, I believe.
True, we should consider, we should reach a balance, in the sense we should recognize that these people are evolving and they are not children alone, but at some level we should also be supervising them because there is a dangerousness.
They need a guidance, yeah. Okay doctor, we'll go through the questions.
Yes.
I'm Alex. I have a doubt that I'm confused about priorities, so how should I go about it?
Okay.
Confusion about priorities is very, very common. I think that is the commonest problem which adolescent children or adolescent boys and girls face. When you get confused about priorities, remember you're doing a lot of things. That is the reason why you're getting confused about priorities. So when you're doing a lot of things and when there is trouble in what you're doing, just take a paper, write down what things you're doing and then define the absolute necessities and take up that first and finish it off, then go to the next. So when you get the priorities, it is about defining the priorities which are essential at that point of time and completing it to your satisfaction.
Yeah. I think if they are confused about their priorities, I think they can take a help of their parents or
yes,
some elderly people.
Definitely. If they are confident about someone, maybe in adolescence not always your parents, but it's some elder brother or maybe your cousin brother, you can always take help from them and discuss that, because when you have a discussion, probably there will be other ideas that are coming in, and if you can take those ideas also, it will be better.
I think doctor, when they are confused about all these priorities, most of the time I have seen students or adolescents, they have a feeling of depression or they fall into some other kind of mental stress. Usually what are problems do they have?
No, when they the most important thing that you have to remember is, if you cannot carry out these responsibilities, you will feel extremely stressed. Sometimes you will not be eating well, you will not be sleeping well, you will be angry for little things, you might throw things around, you might not mingle with your friends, you might be not talking to your relatives, etc. These are all signs of stress. When you have signs of stress, always seek help with the people whom you are confident with. And remember, at the first level, it is always better to talk to them. When you talk to them, they will probably discuss these things in greater detail. They'll always be able to tell you things which you might not know, which are sometimes when you're in trouble, you might not see what is very apparent. And so when you talk to other people, they'll probably say, this is the simplest solution and you can get out of that. So that's going to be very, very important. Discuss things. Don't keep it within yourselves. That will lead to a huge problem. When you take everything inward, then essentially what you said will end up, you will get into depression. You will be thinking, okay, all these things will be just blocking your mind, not able to think properly. And when you start thinking, all these will be sort of negative thoughts. I can't do it, I can't cope, I can't really do it, I don't have any friends, and all those thoughts will come into your mind.
Okay, so we'll see the next question.
Yes.
I'm Anthony. I want to make friends, but I can't. What are the reasons behind this?
Okay.
Not able to make friends is one of the most common reasons of low self-esteem in adolescence. Suddenly you realize that you're alone, you don't have people to relate to, you don't have people to talk to, and all of the people are having a very good time. What should you do? You should start engaging with people with regard to common activities. Probably if you're interested in basketball, then you should get enrolled with some people who are playing basketball. Play with them. Once you start playing with them, then you suddenly realize that you have a lot of commonalities with them. So find people with whom you have commonalities and start engaging with activities. And when you engage with activities, that will lead to more conversation, friendship, and togetherness.
Doctor, here one more question. Most of the time we have seen students with they cannot find out what is their interest. So how to help them out?
The most important thing that you have to do is you have to try to look into yourself and try to find out what you actually do when you have a spare time. If it is cooking that you do, then that's your area of interest. And there's no defined way of it, something which comes naturally to you. If it is simply singing a song when you're in the toilet, that is probably your area of interest. Remember, areas of interest need not be areas of competence. You need not be competent with that. It's something that you do for just for the heck of it. And that's something that you should remember is your area of interest, and that is the area that you can identify with. And people who share that area, you can identify with them, you can engage with them, and you can probably be friends with them.
Doctor, another thing here. Most of the time, parents complaining, kids are sitting and watching, all the time they are sitting and watching the TV. They don't do any other things.
I think parents have to take a major blame for that. What happens is when they are children, what they do, they put them in front of TV and go and do their household work. Okay. And later, suddenly when they are 11 or 12, they force these people to go out. This sort of thing should happen from childhood. They should be getting reasonable, healthy opportunities to engage with people of their own peer group. So you can't expect people to change from one day to the next. And change is always a gradual process. Let's say, for some reason, lots of people are, from nuclear families, and it's not possible for them to get avenues to engage with people like in previous years. So what we should probably do is, if for some reason that has happened in 10 or 12, we should probably try to engage this child like in small areas of interest, and in a gradual fashion over a few years. That happens over a few years. You can't expect the change to happen one day. A sort of evolution where they go from a person who is cloistered into the home to a person who is more open. But remember, that will require constant encouragement, constant effort, because till that point of time the child did not have any friends.
Okay, right, yeah. Okay. We'll see the next question, Doctor.
My name is Sanath. I am from Alva. Okay. I have a question. I tried to study, but I can't. Please help me.
Okay.
Especially in exam time, this is a very common phenomenon. Lot of children, lot of adolescents, lot of adults come with this complaint that I can't study, I can't remember things. Now, remember, the commonest reason for that is anxiety with regard to exams. When it comes to exam time, you have such a lot of portions remaining, you suddenly realize that you can't study, or you cannot recollect things after you have studied. So remember, there is one very important thing you have to take in mind, that is, if you study once, your recollection rate is 30%. If you study 3 times, it becomes 80 to 90%, and 80 to 90% is the maximum sort of recollection normal human beings can have. So it is very important for you to do study once, then do a revision, and the third time is a sort of thing that you do in the day previous to exam, where you just flip around the books. That's more or less what you have to do. So unless you do that 3 times, you are likely to have problems there, and you can't expect yourself to study a whole book of economics in the day prior to exam. That's not going to be possible. Let's say for some reason you haven't studied well, okay, and you have an exam coming and you have to finish your exams. That time this sort of thing is not going to be practical, or is not going to be feasible. What do? You have to, well, my suggestion is you have to read the most important questions. Take a selection. It's not the right thing to say, but lots of students have these problems. So you take maybe last 5 years of university questions, okay, and then mark out the selections. And what you do, you study that once, study that twice. And if you're anxious, please don't try to recollect. You should not try to recollect if you become anxious, because when you recollect, you'll suddenly realize, oh my God, I can't recollect the whole thing, and then your heart starts beating, pat 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 pat. And the next question you read, your retention rate will be far less, because you're reading it with the basic anxiety, thinking I can't finish it. And the third question you will not be able to read. So if you're anxious, please don't try to recollect. When you come to examinations, definitely when you sit there, you will be able to write a lot of things, lot more than what you perceive. So if you're anxious, if you're studying well also, don't try recollection. That's not going to be a sort of healthy thing to do. Okay.
Doctor, many times we have seen like students, they do perform well in written exams, but during Viva they'll be like so much stressed.
Yeah, that's very, very common. Especially a lot of people who study well have this problem of answering when it comes to Viva, where they are asked even simple questions, they struggle. What they should realize is probably that they have a performance anxiety, and that should be dealt in a slightly different fashion. They should probably learn relaxation so that they relax well. And secondly, they should remember when they go there, they should not try to answer immediately or rush to the answers, but take their time, understand what the question is, understand the chapter from the question is asked, then understand which paragraph or which area it comes, and try to think in that fashion. Don't jump into a position. You think, okay, this comes from the biochemistry book, and that comes from chapter 3 of the biochemistry book, and that's an inorganic part, and that talks about sodium. So you talk about sodium, and then you go down to the paragraph, and you think through the process. Maybe there's a delay in you answering the question, but the answer will be definitely around that point. Yeah. And most importantly, you should probably learn to relax, and the relaxation is something that you can learn by doing yoga or something. That's something that you should practice on a long term. It is not something that you can do in the morning of the exam and get a good result in the evening.
I think even when they don't know the answer also, they try to guess or they try to bluff, I believe. Right?
Yeah, that's very common, and I should say
they'll usually get into more problems.
That's okay, but at some level you should also learn to bluff. But you should learn to bluff intelligently. In the sense, you should try to bluff, right? Yeah, way to bluff and way not to bluff. And if you really know that it comes from one area, then you should try to intelligently find out. If you have not heard the term at all, it makes sense for you to actually say, I don't know. Okay, but if you know that it's somewhere there, I've read it, I know it, it is there, it could be probably this, then you should try to attempt to answer the question. Okay.
Okay, doctor. We'll see the next question.
Yeah.
Hi, myself Salva Harris. I'm a BSc Psychology student. I want to ask you that I feel very anxious when I talk to people, and I don't know how I'll get job because I'm very sure that I'll fail in my interview.
Lots of adolescents complain of parental interference. On one hand, I would say that those adolescents who complain of parental interference should be thankful that their parents are actually interested in them, because I know a lot of parents who are absolutely uninterested in their own kids. They're very busy with their life, very busy with their careers, and very busy with doing what they want to do. Now, parental interference is actually the other extreme. When you have parents who interfere, remember that in a lot of occasions they are interfering for very genuine things. They're interfering out of concern. But sometimes, because of parental anxiety, they may end up interfering in very trivial things. It's very important for you to listen to them. And if they are interfering on trivial things, it's important for you to discuss these issues with them, try to find out why they are anxious about these issues, and probably talk very frankly with them and tell them what you are up to and what you are actually doing. And always remember, one of the reasons why parents get anxious is when you come up very, very late, and probably given the fact that the environment, whether it's in Kerala or in Delhi or Bombay, is not very conducive or very safe, it might be better for you to inform them prior where you are, with whom you are, and when you are likely to come back. And when you actually tell that, remember, you should actually tell them the truth, because if they find out that you are lying, then their anxiety will probably increase to an extent that they will not let you go anywhere. But parental anxiety and parental interference should be seen in a more positive way than what adolescents actually view.
Okay. Doctor, we have got a mail. I'll just see. Doctor, my friends use drugs. They insist that I also use it. What should I do? I think this letter is from Ernakulam. He has not mentioned his name.
I think it's a very, very common problem. If you really look at our schools and colleges, drug and alcohol use has become very rampant. And lots of adolescents face this problem. It's a very, very pertinent question. I would say you should say no. To the point of really saying that they are going to label you. They will probably label you as a boring guy or a boring person. You can't get into this company. But I think that is better than getting into alcohol or drugs, especially when you're young. When you're maybe below 21, if you start using drugs, then the risk for addiction is very, very high. For example, if you use any alcohol or drugs at 15 years, you have a 50% chance of becoming an addict. But if you start using by 21, the risk will reduce to 10%. That's a very proven fact. That is the reason why everyone says you should not take alcohol below 21. The beverages, they have a rule saying that you should not use before 21. That is basically because of a very important scientific fact that below 21, you use anything, whether it's alcohol, drugs, nicotine, cannabis, whatever, the chance of addiction is very, very high, because it influences the developing brain. Okay, so if someone is using alcohol, try to talk to them, tell them that this is not the way it has to go. If they don't include you, be happy they are not including you. It's better to be their enemy rather than using drugs. I would say no, any day, any time.
Like we have heard many of them saying, it's just for occasional drink.
Everyone starts on an occasion. When you are 15, it's not that you start drinking every day. Everyone starts on occasion. But that occasional drink or occasional use of anything, even smoking, whatever, simple thing, can change your brain circuits to the extent that within a few years, you will start using that more frequently on a daily basis, and then your life is gone.
So Dr. how will you help them? I mean, how can you...
No, if there is someone who is using that, I would suggest that you genuinely talk to them. And if they are not willing to listen, I don't mind if you actually inform their parents if they are interested. Maybe not directly, but indirectly. Sometimes they might not actually know. Okay. Sometimes the responsible people need to know, because if you catch them early, you can treat them. And if you treat them, they get definitely better. And remember, adolescent substance use is sort of emergency that you have to intervene immediately. Because if you don't, they will stop studies, they will go down the route which is extremely dangerous. And you have a huge amount of problems at the end of 5 years. Okay. Maybe the problems are not apparent immediately, but that's extremely dangerous. Okay.
So that was really an informative talk, Doctor.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you.
That's all for today. Write your suggestion to us. Our email ID is youthdare@gmail.com. Bye-bye.